Hi, and welcome to another episode of About the Authors TV. I'm your host, Jake Brown. A master of palpable and visual details, how the Washington Post has described the work of Adriana Trigiani, who the Today Show celebrated as the best-selling author known for her sweeping stories, many of which touch on her Italian ancestry and Appalachian upbringing, while ABC News has spotlighted her as the New York Times best-selling author filmmaker who wrote and directed the motion picture adaptation of her debut novel, Big Stone Gap. The series that kicked off her staggering one-of-a-kind success with the self-titled debut and best-selling sequels Big Cherry Holler, Milk Glass Moon, and Home to Big Stone Gap. The Viola trilogy threw Viola in real life and Viola in the spotlight. Her beloved Valentine series, where Marie Claire recommended loading up on cappuccino and biscotti before getting lost in the super froth of the romance-soaked Very Valentine, Brava Valentine, and the Supreme Macaroni Company, complemented by a long run of standalone hits, including Lucia Lucia, the Queen of the Big Time, Rococo, the Shoemaker's Daughter, All the Stars in the Heavens, Kiss Carlo, Tony's Wife, The Good Left Undone, and The View from Lake Como, picture book The House of Love, and best-selling nonfiction including Cooking with My Sisters, Don't Sing at the Table, and The Wisdom of My Grandmothers. USA Today has even reported that she has her own brand of fans named Adriatics, and she joins us today to talk about it all. Adriana, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jake.
Now, growing up in Appalachia, we would have to imagine that the storytelling tradition was naturally woven into your upbringing.
Well, I think it's like a combo platter, Jake. My mom was a librarian, so there was an instant reverence for books from the beginning. The first thing we did in Big Stone Gap was line up for the bookmobile because my mother believed that getting a library card was kind of your essential passage into a thinking human being. Okay, so, and my parents, I always say the thing that made my parents different, and I don't mean this in any way except the way it sounds, is my parents went to college. They were college graduates. And so there was a reverence for education and for thought itself. And it just fed into every aspect of our lives. You know, we had a home filled with books. We went to the library. Storytelling to me was the highest dream. And, you know, I come from a family, of course, 7 kids. My father worked really hard. My mother worked really hard. But, you know, you didn't get everything you wanted, not even close. And you learned not to ask for anything. But the one thing you could do is you could check out as many books as you wanted from the library. And I got into the habit of checking out more than I could carry. That's how much I loved reading. So to make a career out of it, that's the first bloom on that is my parents as readers. And my brothers and sisters are all smarter than me, which also helped. And there's 7 of us. And I would also say that to grow up in Appalachia is to have a built-in love of the well-told story. And it can be in story songs. It can be in the Trail of the Lonesome Pine outdoor drama in Big Stone Gap. It could be in the pageantry of the marching bands and the sporting events. That was always a big deal. Football, basketball, neither of which I played, but would go and watch because it was social time. I kind of thought I was in a movie growing up. Kind of thought I was in the bedrock of American creativity. And, you know, everything in Big Stone Gap was arty to me. The way the quilts were made, the way people cooked and gathered at the table. Now, I'm Italian, so this is something we did. But boy, what an education to be at a covered dish supper at a religion that you weren't part of and see community at work and the quirks and the characters. It all led to writing books, all of it, and plays for the theater and movies and television. I've been pretty freaking lucky now that I'm talking to you, Jake. I didn't realize that till now.
Now, you've enchanted readers for decades by essentially making your hometown a home away from home for them on the page throughout the Big Stone Gap series over Big Stone Gap, which CBS News profiled as a small mountain town with some big-time eccentricities. It's the setting of a new series about a woman who thinks life's passed her by, but she learns that the best is yet to come. as fans did in sequels. They returned with Ava Marie Mulligan to the Virginia mountain town and her marriage to coal miner husband Jack McChesney in Big Cherry Holler, where USA Today saluted you as a wonderful storyteller. Milk Glass Moon, where they continued singing your praises for serving up southern fried storytelling with a recipe for chocolate Coca-Cola cake and a few Italian side dishes. The story takes a detour into Tuscany while catching up with her and her down-home cast, and at home to Big Stone Gap more recently, by which time they crowned you one of the reigning queens of women's fiction. What do you think it is that fans have found so continually enchanting within their trips back with you to the Blue Ridge Mountains for chapter after chapter in Ava Marie and family story, that it eventually was even immortalized in its own feature motion picture, which Good Morning America impressively noted you wrote and directed, starring Ashley Judd and Whoopi Goldberg?
You know, I didn't have any idea what I was actually doing. That's why the novel Big Stone Gap has like 4 endings. And then my editor said, you should really just pick one ending. And I said, I don't want to. What if it doesn't work out? Then I'll be sad I didn't put them all in. But what I did when I wrote my first novel that was published 25 years ago is I said, I want to bring everybody home to where I'm from and to see it through the lens of an Italian American. And I often say this. And now when you're a novelist, you could do whatever you want. Okay. Even sometimes when the culture tells you can't write that, you're not that thing. What are you out of your mind? You're using my imagination. The imagination is limitless. It has no gender, color, point of view. It's whoever the characters are. Seems nuts to me, that conversation, but okay, whatever. But I learned writing the characters in Big Stone Gap, that series, that I could hunker in and stay with them over 4 books and present really the true texture and scope of these characters. And that is what I think made it a success, is that I could stay in the world with them. And hopefully then it developed into a craft that I carried into other times, places, and spaces in the novels.
Now, as the good old-fashioned saying goes, debts lead to births, and dreams deferred yield wondrous new visions. Entertainment Weekly teased what awaited readers within the enchanting pages of The Queen of the Big Time, which notably became not only an instant New York Times bestseller, but a Broadway show. Celebrating your own ancestry in the 1800s must have been a charming trip to take on the page. What first inspired you to travel to Roseto, Pennsylvania to tell Nella Castellucco, Renato Lanzaro, and Franco Zalanero's complicated to say the least love story here?
I just love that you asked me that, Jake, because The Queen of the Big Time, it was a New York Times bestseller, but it's kind of my secret novel that's not often discussed. And I love the shape and the swath of that novel. It's told through a character who's a farm girl. Her parents are Venetian, which is my grandmother, Viola. And it begins at a crossroads in her life when she's 14 and the teacher at the one-room schoolhouse has held her back and tried to bring her along. And she's due to visit her parents, the 2 Venetian Italian immigrants, and say, listen, this kid, Nella, needs to go to college. She needs to go to high school so she can go to college. She's really brilliant. And the father listens and the mother listens. And then when the teacher leaves, the boom is lowered. You got to go into the mill and work. That's my grandmother. And she became a forelady by the age of 14. And for anybody whose family works in the factory business or manufacturing or the blue collar jobs that built this country, you will know that to be a forelady at the age of 14, she had to have an imposing presence and an innate intelligence and an understanding of how to keep all the workers on the machines on schedule and deliver the goods. So my grandmother's kind of a miracle to me as a character. So in Queen of the Big Time, I chronicled her life. Now, that's not enough for a novel. And I had just been to Italy, and you mentioned that. I go to Italy a great deal, and I have relatives there, and I stay close to my cousins. And there was a story that I heard on the mountain in the Alps that married beautifully into my story about my grandmother Viola, which was the story of a young man who was sent away to be a priest after he was the town bad boy. And then Rome, in their wisdom, assigned him back to the mountain, where he would come face to face with all the girls he had been with and all the crap he had pulled. I mean, it's just a delicious concept. And that came from my great uncle, Monsignor Don Andrea Spada, who was the editor of the Lecco di Bergamo for 45 years. So he was a priest, but he was a writer. See, nobody's ever sprung full formed into this life unless they've got baggage or gifts that somebody bestowed on you, probably both. So I always took it very seriously that he was a writer and I was going to become a writer. So I had a kind of a role model.
Your next story was inspired by that of your grandparents, who came here from northern Italy in the early 20th century with a shoemaker's wife, which the Washington Post called the latest in a string of heartwarming family sagas. Musing and introducing this one is an old-fashioned romantic tale of two star-tangled lovers, Enzo Ravanelli and Circo Lazzari. Please take us back inside the charming journey that you wrote here, beginning in the Italian Alps, where the story travels by various routes to New York's Little Italy, a Hoboken factory, backstage at the Metropolitan Opera, Minnesota's Iron Range, and the trenches of France. And a love story, yes, but what they also call a paean to artisanal work. Work, food, friendship, and family, as we mentioned above, inspired by your maternal grandparents.
That novel's also very special to me because it's the story of my maternal grandparents. But in that novel, I decided to do some things that I didn't do in Queen of the Big Time, which was to give my grandmother, who gave up an awful lot, to give her a dream in there. And that's how she ends up a seamstress to Enrico Caruso. And I find that, the beauty of writing novels is you can do whatever you want. Whatever you want. When you work in the lively arts, including the theater and television and movies, you're so aware of the budget that for somebody like me, who comes from a hardworking background, I don't like to see money thrown around. And I actually get sick when I hear it is in show business because I don't believe in that. I have this sense that we can make more plays, more movies, and more television shows if we're careful. But that's not the way the world works. That ain't the way the world works. So in the pages of a novel, I'm free. Jake, I can go anywhere, do anything. So that book, I put myself in the shoes of my grandfather when he was fighting in the trenches of France in World War I as an American. I was able to tell you the stories of the Puerto Rican Americans in the hundreds of thousands that fought in the war. People act like our Latino brothers and sisters got here last Tuesday. No, they're invested in this country. And isn't it weird that we have to write fiction to get the facts out sometimes? It's sort of a thing. It's like we have to explain to people what we're doing here. But in the walls of a novel, you're free.
People magazine felt instantly like so many readers for your memorable heroine Valentine, as she struggles to balance her life as a shoe designer with her love life throughout Very Valentine, Bravo Valentine, and the Supreme Macaroni Company, where the Library Journal found us picking up with Valentine Roncalli, a shoemaker and designer in her family's business, marrying a leather tanner who's 20 years older, and the son of Valentine's grandmother's new husband. After their honeymoon, they return to their lives, but not all is bliss. Val is tied to New York, and Gianluca is bound to Italy. What do you find most magical about being able to set up your stories against so many timeless backdrops? From old school Greenwich Village to your family's native homeland of Italy.
I love that family too. I could be right back there when you mentioned the Supreme Macaroni Company. Valentine Roncalli, or Valentina Roncalli, as your grandmother would call her. She just wanted to make beautiful shoes. Like she was compelled to be a shoemaker. And her love life was fraught because there was always a sense that she loved making shoes more than any person, more than any man, for sure. And so when she meets a man who's older than she is, it's one of my older man, younger woman ones, but she's not that young. She's in her 30s. So everybody relax. She looks at love like it's a learning experience, like it's a craft. And that's what I love about the Valentine series is I love her devotion to that old world craftsmanship and kind of her longing to have a great love in her life that isn't shoes.
You travel next with bands to 1930s Hollywood. Had you long wanted to play matchmaker in telling the dramatized romance you do here between Loretta Young and Clark Gable based on their real-life love affair in All the Stars in Heaven?
Well, Loretta Young intrigued me because she was very pious, which I think is a positive attribute outside of her beauty. And I think she had an intellectual interest in the scripts she was in. I think she was a marvelous actor. And I think she says it better than I do in her autobiography. She had a fraught love life. She married very young. She came from this incredible family. Her mother was an interior designer, probably one of the most famous in Hollywood ever. And beautiful sisters, all of whom did very well in life. And I wanted to uncover really the mystery of her. But Loretta Young was you have to remember, an actor in the golden age of Hollywood, and it was all about image and the spin. You let the fans in ever so much to adore you, but you were not obligated to any kind of truth. It did not matter. And she almost spun a story around her life to protect people in her life, including the daughter that she had with Clark Gable. Now, Clark Gable was interesting to me because when I was young, nobody was a Clark Gable fan. He was like my grandmother's era. Okay. And I had a great Aunt Mary Farino, Rosetta, Pennsylvania, Garibaldi Avenue, who made the Sunday dinner, who brought me into the world of the $1 Million Movie when I stayed there during the summers. And all the children would make the cavatelli in the basement with her, roll the dough because the hands were small and you could make like the little noodles. And so we'd do that. And then we'd go upstairs and there would be like a cookie and she made this juice and we'd sit and she'd tell me about these movies and she'd go, they cut scenes out. And then she would tell me what was cut out. So when I got to college, this was before TCM, we're in the 80s. She was right. They cut all these essential scenes out of movies. One of the ones that really stuck with me was A Man's Castle with Spencer Tracy and Loretta Young. Now you understand how I write novels. I remembered this, went back and watched the badly cut version that they put on the $1 Million Movie, directed by an Italian-American, Frank Borzaghi. And Frank Borzaghi won the first Oscar as a director, and he was Italian-American. Interesting. Then they did the uncut version of A Man's Castle. And Jake, it was like Illuminata. I was like, are you kidding me? They cut out all the essential scenes and her performance was shredded. And by the way, Spencer Tracy's not so good either. But then when they showed you the whole movie as Borzaghi wanted you to see it, I said, I got to put that in a book. That is fascinating. That's fascinating. It helps us understand, through history, how things change and how art morphs to serve the audience in different ways. But Loretta Young's family, when my book came out, said my book was a lie. Well, it's a piece of fiction, so good luck with that. But I felt very bad about it, and I still do, because I didn't consider the living relatives. I really didn't. I felt like, and by the way, you're not compelled to. So I probably would have waited to write that novel till everyone was gone.
Well, others would argue it's a good thing you didn't, as it was entertaining as much as it was educational. And CBS News would find themselves equally immersed in a must-read this summer, where the Today Show was as fired up to journey themselves to see the view from Lake Como, where lead protagonist Jess Barada does just that when she moves into her parents' basement after getting divorced from a too-good-to-be-true husband. While there, she snaps back into a role as dutiful daughter, but it's not working for her anymore. Jess ends up in Lake Como, The glacial lake set against the foothills of the Italian Alps in Italy's Lombardo region, located in the north of the country. It's known for its picturesque villages, stunning vistas, and villas owned by the likes of George Clooney. What did you most enjoy about meeting a new star of the story here after creating so many memorable leads throughout the years? What first made you fall in love with Jess before Angelo Straza and the rest of us did?
So Giuseppina Capodimonte Barata Belancia is 34 years old and she's living in her parents' basement. Why? What happened to her? She's down and out when this book opens, and she's trying to find answers to move forward. She was married to the cutest guy in town, still loves the guy. Her parents are getting older. She's taking care of them, but they're ambulatory. They're all right. Her brother's married. He became a lawyer, her sister. But for whatever reason, because of her name, she's named after the maiden aunt. She feels kind of a heavy weight on her. Like it's not really her life. She's got to meet other people's expectations and please them. But when it all falls apart, you got two choices. You're either going to stay in the basement and make it work, or you're going to get out. And she works as a draftsman for her Uncle Louis, who owns the family business, Capodimonte Marble and Stone. Her mother is his sister. And through the years, they live around Lake Como, New Jersey. They feuded. The brother tried to bring his sister into the business. She was terrible with the public. You starting to get the picture here. Every character has a stake in this, in the drama of her life. And then she finds something out, as you know, Jake, we don't want to spoil it, that it's a bomb. She can't believe what they did to her. So she goes to Italy because the intention was Uncle Louis was going to take her. He doesn't make it to take her, so she goes alone. And once there, little bit by bit, she starts to figure out who she is. And she knows that there are answers there. She just has an instinct, which one of the themes of the novel is, for God's sakes, listen to your instincts. Listen to that inner voice. It's not going to steer you wrong. It's the all-knowing, eternal thing. It's your subconscious. It's where all art comes. It's where all creativity comes from. It's where your moral decisions come from. It's all in the soul. So this book is the journey of her soul. Now, it's very funny. There's romance in there.
The Christian Science Monitor proclaimed after reading this story that your characters and dialogue are a delight, while E! News congratulated this heartfelt family saga that they promise will have you itching for an invite to the Barata's Sunday dinner. What sort of feedback from readers have you received throughout the years on how they feel your style of rom-com has stood out from the competition?
Atypical of romantic rom-com books, this is a self-love story. This is about somebody, and that's why it's appealing to women of all ages, and men too, but really women who somehow make their voice less to make everybody else comfortable. So this put-upon girl has to figure it out.
This work has two main attractions Book Reporter recently highlighted. Giuseppina Barata, a young woman who's believed forever she could be happy if she's made others happy, and the beautiful marble mountains of Italy. How important is it, do you feel, to travel and spend time physically in a location where you're setting a story for authenticity's sake?
I mean, I take it seriously when I take you someplace. It's important for me to have been there, but not always. Sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you just know what you're going for. So you don't have to worry about that. So I say to writers, don't get cowed by anything, by the cost of a ticket. If you can't go, don't go, but write it. Write it. And then I'm going to guarantee you one thing. When you get there, you will have written it as it is. People always laugh when I say this in any workshops or anything, but I'm telling you, the soul is the powerful thing. It's not the body. It's not the bank account. It's none of those things. If that was the case, these billionaires would be writing novels. Ooh, right? They don't write them. We do, because we understand the limitless treasure that's in the human being. Every human being, including them. I mean, they build other things, right? But an artist is there to summon that for the reader. So to aspiring writers, I'm just going to say two things: read, 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 and write, write, write. You'll get there. You'll get there. If that's your calling, listen to the call.
Effervescent and big-hearted is how Elle has championed this work, and readers really love your love stories. What charmed you about the one you're telling here? And how relatable versus, say, fantastical do you typically try to stylize yours to be?
One of God's great gifts to humanity is the consensual love of two adult people. Okay. I think sex is fantastic. And to me, it's rooted in the connection of living. So when I write a love scene or two people, oh my, is there anything more exciting than that? I mean, just personally speaking, it's very exciting, and it's when I think when human beings try to act like this isn't important is when we get in trouble. When we think it's, for our own pleasure, or that's all, your own pleasure is important in it. To write about it is always very difficult for me because I'm a really private person. But I also recognize that in the parameters of privacy, anything's possible. So when I write a character like Angelo, I see him through her and what that could potentially be. And with Bobby, I love Bobby Belancha too. But as she peels the onion, she starts to realize, oh, geez, it was kind of all on his terms. And I take you back to when they were in school together. So you get a real sense of like, oh my, I was like, people are reading this going, oh my God, that was me. And, this idea of the person that you meet when you're very young, that is really interesting to me. And it doesn't often work out, but when it does, it's kind of great, but it doesn't always work out. You're meant for something else. So writing a romantic scene really has a lot to do with where that character is and what they need from that other person. I hope that makes sense. Very difficult as a Roman Catholic to talk about sex. They really discourage that.
Now, rounding out this thunderous applause, the American Library Association assured us all that readers will be absolutely transported. In that spirit, where are you whisking readers off to next?
I'm working on a new novel that I'm very excited about. It's kind of a new terrain for me because I feel like it's important to challenge yourself. Like I went contemporary this time because I felt this story was best told now. Even though it's based on my great-grandmother's story, I took it and placed it now, which I think made it really feel real. I just think it made it feel real. So a new one there. I'm working on a movie called Our Lady Goes Bananas, which is really fun to shoot in Italy and America. And then I hope to dramatize this into a movie or series. We're talking about that now. So I'm always working on stuff, but the novel writing that's the alpha. That's like the thing. And from these worlds, then people can read them. I have a feeling, Jake, as things go, listen, this is how my luck pans out. I get a call and I'm in and I'm ready to make a movie. Okay. That's how this works with me. It surprises me always. Even when I plan it, I'm always surprised. And the only thing I can really control is the novel writing, because that's just me alone in a room.
The New York Times not long ago spotlighted a different side of your creativity, noting that since her heydays as a writer for The Cosby Show in the early 1990s, the author's built a reputation for being a funny writer with a heart of gold, and a novelist, sitcom writer, and movie director. What have you enjoyed about adapting your own material from the page to the stage and screen? With Then Came You starring Craig Ferguson, Very Valentine for Lifetime Network starring Jacqueline Bisset, Queen of the Big Time, and the aforementioned Big Stone Gap as a few popular examples.
So the others, I have to use my other skills, such as they are, my skills of persuasion to get them made. But I love doing that too. Very different from writing a book. Very different. You have to have a whole different point of view, and you have to set up what you're doing with a particularity, and then you have to shred that novel to dramatize it. Hard.
Career-long fan USA Today recently crowned you one of the reigning queens of women's fiction. What advice have you given out to the generations of female writers you've inspired over the years about how they might reach readers in as original and memorable ways as you have?
That's how this works. You build your community in this book world, and you already have done it. I'm a 7-day-a-week writer. It's hard, but I tell people, don't get so cranked up and mad at me, but it could be on a Saturday that I get up really early and I do a few hours, and then I have my day. And on Sunday, whatever I'm doing, I carve out maybe an hour to edit. But I think to connect to the work every day is important, to keep it close. I'm just going to give you my tips. Number one, have a sacred space where you work. In New York City, I have a friend, Bill Shept. He worked in his closet. He put the laptop in his closet. You have to have a door that closes. I create an ambiance. I can't move this camera, but everything that I do, there's a candle going. This one is on my new book, and it's cinnamon and sage, which should be a tip off as to what the book's going to be about. So I have a scent in the air that tells me it's writing time. Then I make sure I have a lot of coffee and a lot of water, whatever your tea, whatever you do. Have a cup that you only use at your desk if your desk is in the laundry room, which mine was for 18 books. That's all it was there. Then I would say outline if you can, or immerse yourself in the world, however you like to write it. I don't like to give too much advice in that regard, because you might go, I don't do it that way. You shouldn't spend any time forcing you to do it like I do it, or you do it, or anybody else does it. But give yourself time. And if you're not feeling it, get up and take a walk or go to a movie. Get out of there, because it's cooking. It should always flow when you sit down. I get yelled at for this, but I don't believe in writer's block. I just think the subconscious has not been fully addressed, and we're not hearing it. And then my final piece of advice is to work when you sleep. If you get into the habit of thinking about your work and characters right before you go to sleep, you'll wake up with the answers in the morning, because your brain doesn't shut off when you go to sleep. You go into a state. And you don't die, so it's working. Learn to use that. And that's why when people say to me, how do you do so many? It's a lifestyle. I'm not saying this is easy for the people that love you, but it's just part of the deal.
Adriana, I wish I knew a cool Italian word to talk about how entertaining it has been talking today. Thank you so much for taking out time to be on About the Authors TV.
Thank you, dear Jake. Jake, you are fabulous.